Ava Morgan returned home on Thanksgiving night, hopping for peace. She stepped into the dining room and froze. 5 chairs surrounded the table, polished and waiting. None of them were hers. Darren looked up with a smirk that felt rehearsed. He pointed toward the garage, as if dismissing a stray. Her mother stood nearby, silent, small, unwilling to meet her eyes. Ava felt the sting of every childhood wound reopening at once. She tried to speak, but the room swallowed her voice whole. The scent of roasted turkey suddenly felt suffocating. She backed away before anyone could see her shaking. Outside, the cold air hit her like a warning. She realized this house had never held a place for her. Not then, not now, not ever. Ava started the car with a single thought burning inside her. If no one gave her a seat, she would build her own. The rain hit the windshield as Ava drove away in silence. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel. Each mile pulled old memories back to the surface. She tried to ignore them, but they clung to her like fog. She remembered the day Darren moved into their house. He arrived with heavy boots and heavier opinions. He treated Ava like she was a guest who overstayed her welcome. He called her your daughter instead of using her name. Linda never corrected him. Ava learned early that silence could hurt more than insults. Emily, her new stepsister, received new dresses every holiday. Ava got hand-me-downs wrapped in forced smiles. At the dinner table, Emily sat beside Darren like royalty. Ava sat near the kitchen doorway, half included, half invisible. She remembered how Darren locked away small privileges. She was told not to touch the good plates, not to talk too loud, not to ask for seconds unless invited. Every rule chipped away at her sense of belonging. Ava once asked Linda why things were different for her. Linda sighed and said she was old enough to understand. But Ava understood something else entirely. She understood that her place in the family was conditional. She understood that love could be uneven. She understood that acceptance was not promised. The memories kept unfolding as she drove. She recalled the school recital when she was 9. Her teacher handed her a bright red costume. She practiced for weeks, imagining applause. On performance night, Ava scanned the audience. Emily and Darren sat in the front row. Linda sat beside them, holding Emily's jacket. The seat saved for Ava was empty. They arrived late and missed her part entirely. Ava pretended not to care. She joked with classmates and laughed too loudly. But she cried quietly in the car on the way home. Darren complained the whole ride about traffic. No one asked how her performance went. No one noticed her costume was still damp with tears. Ava gripped the wheel tighter as these memories collided. She realized she had spent years shrinking herself. Years trying to earn a place that never existed. Years hoping someone would finally see her. The road stretched ahead like a long, unfinished sentence. Her childhood felt like a constant test she kept failing. No matter how well she behaved, the results stayed the same. She was always the extra chair in the room. The one no one bothered to pull out. The one no one remembered to include. Ava felt anger curling inside her like steel. Not the wild anger of youth, but something sharper. Something mature and deliberate. Something that demanded change instead of forgiveness. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She whispered to herself, despite the shaking in her voice. I deserved better. The words filled the car with a strange power. She repeated them until they no longer felt foreign. Her childhood would no longer define her path. The pain would no longer dictate her worth. Ava didn't know where the road was leading. But she knew she was driving toward a life she would choose. A life where she would no longer beg for a seat. A life where she would finally belong to herself. Ava woke early the morning after Thanksgiving, her mind still aching. The house felt cold, even with the heat on. She sat at her small kitchen table and stared at nothing. Her phone buzzed with ignored messages from coworkers. She wasn't ready to talk to anyone yet. A single thought circled in her mind like a storm. She needed to build something that no one could take away. She opened her laptop and searched for commercial spaces. Most listings were overpriced or already pending. She scrolled through dozens of photos without interest. Then she saw a warehouse on Grant Street. Redline Warehouse. Abandoned. Damaged. Forgotten. Something about it held her attention. She clicked the listing and studied each picture closely. Cracked windows. Rusty beams. Graffiti on one of the brick walls. It looked unwanted in every possible way. Ava felt an unexpected connection to it. She called the number on the listing before she could second-guess herself. A tired-sounding agent answered with little enthusiasm. He said the place had been vacant for years. He warned her about structural issues and zoning problems. Ava wrote everything down anyway. She scheduled a visit for the next day. After the call, she brewed coffee she barely tasted. Her heart beat faster with a mix of fear and resolve. She didn't know how she would afford renovations. She didn't know if anyone would understand her idea. But she knew she needed a project that meant something. She needed a space where no one could push her into a garage. The next morning, she drove to Grant Street. The neighborhood was quiet and a little rough. Shops with faded signs lined the sidewalks. People walked with their heads down against the cold. The warehouse rose at the corner like a stubborn giant. Its red bricks were chipped, but still standing strong. Ava stepped inside, with the agent trailing behind her. Dust floated in the air with each step they took. The ceiling was high and echoed even the smallest sound. Ava imagined lights hanging from the beams. She pictured tables and an open floor filled with people talking. She pictured chairs. Many chairs. More chairs than she ever saw at her family's table. The agent kept listing flaws as if trying to scare her. She barely heard him. Her mind was building faster than his warnings could break. She stood in the center of the empty space. She felt something shift inside her. It wasn't just ambition. It was survival. It was reclamation. She walked from corner to corner, testing the floor beneath her boots. Every sound felt like possibility. She could see the future here, even if no one else could. The agent asked if she wanted to leave. She said no. She asked for a second walkthrough alone. He agreed and stepped outside to make a call. Ava breathed deeply in the vast, empty room. Her voice echoed faintly as she whispered to herself. This is it. The idea grew roots in her chest. She would turn this forgotten place into something alive. A space where outsiders felt seen. A space where no one needed permission to sit. A space that reflected everything she fought for. A space that would become her answer to a lifetime of exclusion. She stepped back outside with a steady expression. She told the agent she wanted to make an offer. His eyebrows rose in surprise. Ava didn't care. For the first time in years, she felt sure of her direction. The road ahead was messy and uncertain. But she wasn't afraid anymore. She finally knew what she was building. A seed of her own, shaped from every wound she survived. Ava signed the lease for Redline Warehouse and felt a surge of adrenaline. The building was hers, but it was far from ready. The floors were cracked. The roof leaked. Rust covered every metal beam. She took a deep breath and made her first call. A contractor answered with skepticism in his voice. He said women rarely take on projects like this. Ava ignored him. She scheduled a site visit for the next morning. She walked the warehouse alone before the crew arrived. Dust rose from the floor with every step she took. She imagined the space transformed, vibrant and alive. The walls would be exposed brick, warm under lights. Steel beams would remain, strong and black. Every design choice reflected her vision and her fight. When the construction crew arrived, some whispered among themselves. Ava met their doubts with clear instructions and unwavering confidence. She hired an architect who understood her vision immediately. They sketched plans that expanded her ideas even further. The project began slowly. Walls were reinforced, pipes replaced, windows repaired. Each day brought new challenges. Permits were delayed. Vendors were late. Unexpected costs piled up like obstacles. Ava refused to compromise. She negotiated tirelessly with suppliers. She sourced reclaimed wood for tables and chairs. She insisted on industrial lighting that would glow warmly across the room. Every choice was deliberate, personal, and symbolic. The community started noticing her efforts. Local artisans offered help for materials and furniture. Former outsiders like her volunteered to paint and clean. Ava worked side by side with them, hands dirty, sleeves rolled. The transformation was slow but steady. Brick walls were cleaned, revealing textures from decades past. Steel beams were coated with black enamel, gleaming under sunlight. The floor was polished until it reflected movement like water. She selected chairs, 200 in total, each representing a person who had no seat. Lighting was hung in clusters to create warmth without walls. The warehouse took on a rhythm of its own. Ava checked each detail, from the smallest bolt to the largest beam. Her vision became reality, a space that felt alive with potential. The warehouse began to feel like more than a building. It became a statement. Every corner spoke of resilience. Every window welcomed light and possibility. Every chair silently affirmed belonging. Investors watched as the project transformed. Some were moved to tears, recognizing themselves in her struggle. Ava held daily briefings, guiding every stage of construction. She refused to let doubt creep in from the outside world. She knew the warehouse would be complete only when it reflected her story fully. Months passed with relentless work and unwavering focus. By the final week, the warehouse was unrecognizable. What was once abandoned now glowed with purpose and strength. Ava walked through the space alone, her hands brushing the new wood surfaces. She imagined guests arriving, seeing chairs waiting for them without judgment. Her heart swelled with pride and quiet triumph. This was her answer to every year of being overlooked. This was her victory over silence and exclusion. The seat was no longer a dream. It was a tangible declaration. It was Ava's own creation, built from pain, resilience, and hope. Every brick, every beam, every chair told a story of survival. The space now belonged to her, and to everyone who had ever been ignored. Ava finally allowed herself to smile, knowing the hardest part had been done. She had claimed her seat, and nothing could take it away. Ava received the letter first thing in the morning. Emily had filed a formal complaint with the city. The city claimed there were zoning violations. The work might be delayed indefinitely. Ava read the letter twice, her jaw tightening. She folded it carefully and placed it on the table. She would not panic. She would not retreat. She called her lawyer immediately. He reassured her that the complaint was weak. Emily was trying to intimidate her. The hearing was scheduled in 2 weeks. Ava spent the next days preparing relentlessly. She studied building codes. She reviewed permits. She gathered photos of the warehouse's progress. She documented every payment, every inspection, every approval. Her team was ready to defend every decision. The morning of the hearing, Ava wore a tailored black suit. She arrived early, clutching a folder full of evidence. Emily was there, sitting smugly in the front row. Darren lingered near the back, arms crossed, judging silently. The hearing began with the city officials presenting Emily's concerns. They claimed safety hazards and improper permits. Ava's lawyer countered calmly, citing every regulation met. He showed photographs of completed work. He presented letters from inspectors and contractors. Ava stood silently, watching Emily's confidence falter. When it was her turn, she walked to the podium with steady steps. Her voice was clear and measured. She described the vision behind Redline Warehouse. She spoke of the community it would serve. She explained how the space would create opportunities for outsiders. She didn't mention Emily, Darren, or her mother by name. Her words painted a picture bigger than personal conflict. The room was silent, attentive. Officials asked questions. Ava answered everyone with precision. She felt no fear, only focus. Emily tried to interrupt, but Ava's lawyer remained firm. The officials reviewed documents, photographs, and testimonies. After hours, the hearing concluded. The city officials deliberated. Ava waited, standing tall in the corner. Her heart pounded, but her posture never wavered. When they returned, the verdict was announced. Redline Warehouse could proceed. The zoning violation claims were dismissed. Ava's victory was official. She exhaled slowly, relief washing over her. Emily's expression was unreadable, a mix of shock and frustration. Darren looked away, unable to meet her gaze. Ava felt a quiet satisfaction, more powerful than anger. She had faced the opposition calmly and decisively. She had proven herself capable and prepared. The warehouse was hers to complete. No one could stop her now. She stepped outside and inhaled the cool air. For the first time, she felt fully in control. Every ounce of fear from her childhood felt distant. The battle was not over, but this was a turning point. She had fought with rules, knowledge, and poise. The fight was won not with noise, but with certainty. Ava looked at the warehouse from the street. It seemed to stand taller, stronger, as if acknowledging her triumph. She smiled, imagining the doors opening soon to the first guests. She felt proud, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever felt excluded. The seat would open, and it would belong to them all. Ava knew this moment would define the rest of her journey. She had faced family and bureaucracy and emerged victorious. Her vision was unstoppable now, her purpose clearer than ever. She walked back to her car with steady steps. The warehouse waited for her return, ready to become a home for outsiders. Nothing could shake her resolve again. Ava spent the next morning drafting invitations. She wanted the message to reach people who had always been overlooked. She wrote to neighbors ignored by the community. She reached out to local artists who struggled to find space. She contacted retired teachers who felt forgotten. She sent letters to single parents who worked long hours. Every invitation carried a simple phrase, "You have a seat here." She posted notices in coffee shops and community boards. Social media amplified her message unexpectedly. A heartfelt post by Margaret Dunn caught fire online. People shared it, tagging friends who had felt excluded. The response was overwhelming. Emails and calls poured in from strangers. Many expressed relief at finally being seen. Some wrote about their own childhoods, lonely and invisible. Ava read each note carefully, filing them away. She felt the energy of a community forming around her. The warehouse became more than a building in her mind. It was a symbol, a beacon, a promise. Volunteers offered to help with preparations. A local bakery sent trays of bread and pastries. A young musician offered to play at the opening. Ava coordinated deliveries and schedules with precision. Every small gesture reminded her of the power of inclusion. She designed seating charts with care. Each chair represented a story, a person, a life once ignored. The warehouse transformed day by day. Tables were arranged to encourage conversation. Lighting was adjusted to create warmth and intimacy. Every detail reflected the intention behind the seat. Ava felt proud as she oversaw the final touches. The community support made her vision tangible. People who once felt invisible were now being invited. It was a reversal of the exclusion she had known. The energy in the warehouse was palpable. Ava imagined faces she hadn't met yet. She pictured laughter filling the space. She imagined conversations that had never happened. The warehouse walls seemed to hum with possibility. The first RSVP came from a young artist named Leo. He wrote about never being invited to anything in town. Another came from Mrs. Patel, a retired librarian. She shared a story of being overlooked in school committees. Each message strengthened Ava's resolve. She realized the seat had become a movement. It was no longer just her personal triumph. It represented hope for anyone who had felt unseen. Ava prepared speeches in her head, but quietly. She wanted to inspire without overshadowing the guests. She thought about how Emily and Darren would react. It no longer mattered. This space was for others now. Ava coordinated seating, making sure no one felt out of place. She labeled chairs with small cards, carrying welcoming messages. Volunteers tested lights, sound, and flow of foot traffic. The warehouse now felt alive, anticipating its first real event. Ava walked through the rows of chairs one last time. Each seat was ready to receive someone who mattered. She imagined hundreds of stories converging under the same roof. For the first time, she felt the weight of isolation lifting. The community was arriving before the grand opening. Neighbors, artists, teachers, parents, everyone felt included. Ava stood back and watched the space fill with energy. Her vision had become real in a way she never expected. The warehouse was more than walls and furniture now. It was a testament to resilience and belonging. She smiled quietly, feeling the true impact of her work. The seat was ready to welcome the world. And Ava knew this was only the beginning. Ava received a call from Julia Kemp, a local journalist. Julia wanted to feature the seat in the Sunday edition. Ava agreed immediately, sensing the opportunity to share her vision. She arrived at the warehouse early, before the crew started setup. Julia carried a notebook and a small recorder. She asked Ava to walk her through the space. Ava led her past walls, beams, and rows of carefully arranged chairs. Julia asked questions about the design choices. Ava explained the industrial aesthetic and the warm lighting. She spoke about the 200 chairs and their symbolic meaning. She did not mention Darren, Emily, or her mother. Instead, she focused on the people who felt unseen. She described the space as a haven for outsiders. Ava shared stories of neighbors and artists who had responded to invitations. Julia nodded, taking notes and recording every word. She asked about Ava's motivation. Ava spoke calmly, almost conversationally. I wanted a place where everyone has a seat, everyone belongs. She paused to show Julia the single wooden chair under the spotlight. That chair represents every person who ever felt excluded, she said. Julia scribbled quickly, her eyes wide with understanding. She asked about the challenges Ava faced during construction. Ava mentioned permits, delays, and skeptical contractors. She framed every struggle as part of the journey, not the obstacle. Julia leaned in, curious about Ava's personal connection. Ava smiled faintly, remembering Thanksgiving and her childhood. She described the warehouse as a response to years of being overlooked. She spoke with enough detail to convey emotion without numbing anyone. Julia asked about the future of the seat. Ava said she hoped it would inspire other projects for inclusivity. She wanted it to grow beyond a building, into a movement. Julia walked around, capturing photographs of the space. Ava showed her the corners where volunteers had left notes and messages. Each note carried gratitude and excitement from future guests. Ava described the volunteers as people who had once felt invisible. She emphasized community and empowerment, not personal revenge. Julia asked if Ava ever feared failure. Ava admitted doubt, but insisted that determination outweighed fear. She had learned to turn pain into purpose. Julia recorded her final quote carefully. Ava wanted the story to be hopeful, not bitter. She wanted readers to understand inclusion without judgment. The interview ended with Julia thanking Ava for her honesty. Ava guided her outside to photograph the warehouse from the street. Julia captured light spilling through large windows, highlighting the open space. She photographed the rows of chairs from different angles. Ava stood beside the single chair under the spotlight for a portrait. Julia promised the story would run on the front page of Sunday edition. Ava left the warehouse feeling a mixture of relief and anticipation. She knew the article would spread awareness about the seat. She hoped it would encourage others to create spaces for outsiders. The journalist's questions made her reflect on how far she had come. From being dismissed at the family table to becoming a leader in the community. She walked through the empty rows once more before leaving. Each chair now felt like a promise fulfilled. She imagined guests arriving, seeing the space ready to welcome them. Her vision was no longer private. It was public and influential. The story would give voice to those who had never had one. Ava knew this coverage would cement the seat as a symbol. It was no longer just her victory. It belonged to the entire community. She locked the doors with a sense of quiet pride. Tomorrow, the seat would open, and the world would understand its meaning. Ava left with a steady heart, knowing the work had only just begun. The night of the grand opening finally arrived. Ava stepped into the seat, her heart pounding with anticipation. Hundreds of guests began to arrive, each greeted warmly. The warehouse buzzed with excitement and chatter. She guided people to their seats, ensuring no one felt left out. The single wooden chair under the spotlight drew quiet attention. It symbolized her past pain and the journey she had endured. Ava took a deep breath and walked to the center of the space. She looked at the 200 people seated before her. They were outsiders, overlooked and unseen, now together. She raised her hands, calling the room to focus. Her voice was calm, but filled with authority. "Here, everyone has a seat," she declared simply. Applause filled the warehouse, echoing off the walls. She felt a warmth she had never known in her family's home. The guests smiled, some with tears recognizing the meaning. Ava moved through the space, greeting friends and strangers alike. The energy was electric, alive with acceptance and belonging. She finally sat in the single wooden chair under the light. It was hers, earned through struggle and determination. The crowd cheered softly, honoring her story and their own. Ava looked around and smiled, knowing she had created more than a space. She had created a movement, a place, a home for the unseen. For the first time, she felt truly at home in her own life. Her journey had transformed pain into power and exclusion into hope. The seat was complete, and Ava had finally claimed her place.